Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the John Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals. From directors, producers, writers, cinematographers, and of course, costume designers. Designing Hollywood covers some of the most celebrated professionals in the motion picture industry. The show explores the artistry, the craftsmanship, and the stories that bring our favorite motion pictures to life. Today's guest is Emmy and Art Directors Guild Award-winning nominated production designer Jaime Walker McCall. Jaime has helped shape the visual identity of some of television's most acclaimed projects, including Feud, Betty and Joan, Schmigadoon, Pose, Candy, The Politician, American Crime Story Impeachment, American Horror Story Delicate, and her latest project, and one I am thoroughly enjoying, Apple TV's Cape Fear, the third remake of this project behind Robert Mitchum and Robert De Niro. From creating period-perfect worlds to building emotionally rich environments that deepen character and story, Jaime's work showcases the incredible artistry behind production design. And so without further ado, Designing Hollywood is thrilled to have production designer Jaime Walker McCall with us. Jaime, hello and welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's so great. I have to tell you, my first job in the industry, I was the art department production assistant on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So I have a deep connection. I am an art department. I'm art department through and through. It's always been one of my favorite departments. And you have had a really interesting career working your way up through the art department before you became a production designer. And looking back at what you've worked on, I mean, you've got this incredible journey through television, working on shows like House, you know, a show that lives on the internet. I mean, House has to be one of the most clipped shows on the internet because I keep watching clip. I can't, whenever there's a House clip, I have to watch it. And you've had a really great, cool career, and Cape Fear, your latest project, is amazing. But I have to know about the journey that you took. How did you find yourself first of all, did you always want to get into working in television and film?
You know what? I was going to art school. I was going to Pratt Institute, and I was about to graduate, and my focus was advertising, art direction. And then the Christmas before I graduated, I saw Lord of the Rings, and that just kind of flipped for me. I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to graphic design in TV and film. And so after I graduated, the following year, moved out to LA and just kind of started hitting the bricks and started PAing on pilots. And I was very fortunate to work early on with Bill Bresky, who got me my first pilot job. And then that led to House, where I sat for 7 years as a PA at first, and then graphic designer, and just got a full education on how, the industry kind of works. And then I've just been very fortunate for one project after another. But House was my base, and then it's just kind of, gone from there.
Well, the people have talked about, I mean, on the show, I've started to talk to more production designers, and a lot of people, because you have obviously an art director has been in the news lately talking about working on independent movies and whether they got paid enough or not. And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, what does a production designer actually do? And one of my favorite keys on any show is the production designer running a tight ship in the art department. There's not a more fun place to be, especially if you're on a genre film project or something. And I wonder if you might define, because I've never asked anybody to do this, how do you feel, what is the job of a production designer, and how do you feel a production designer should run an art department?
Ooh, that's like such a loaded question for everyone. Every production designer runs their department differently. a production designer comes in early on. The production designer is usually the first person, one of the first people on a show, because our job is to create the overall look and tone of the show. You know, working with the showrunners, the writer, creator, you know, executive producers, all coming up with the visual language that then will carry out through the rest of the show or feature or whatever. So, you know, it's a pretty big job to come up. I'm constantly pitching for new things. So my mood boards, you just have to come up with a whole visual language for the show and then pitch it. And then you're responsible for carrying that look throughout the entire show. And with that, you have, your crew behind you, which is where the art director comes in. And the art director's day-to-day job is overseeing the builds and drawings and things and making sure the creative language that I have set up is then carried out while I'm off doing, meetings and scouting and all the other stuff. So they're responsible for the day-to-day and budget and overseeing the day-to-day of construction and all things that it takes to actually build and make a TV and or feature show. I like to run my department as, I am very involved still. Because I came up, I graphic designed, I assistant art director.
Yeah, you know every part of which is great.
I know a lot of it, and I like to be very hands-on. So I like to say that I'm the supervising art director because my phone's always on. I ask people to call me whenever. If please ask me a question. I'd rather ask a question now than come in later and it's wrong or in a different direction that we didn't think was going to go. So I personally like to run my department where my door is always open. Please come in and ask me questions. Please, if the art director is not available to field anything, come in. I'm friendly. I'm not going to be mad about anything. But the art director is so important because I can't be all places all at once. And then so if we have various art directors, they're in all the spots and then reporting back to me to make sure that and sending me photos of sets, or if there's something that comes up, which happens all the time on set, is this, let's, dial that back or blah, 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 constantly. And I think about like back in the day when there weren't phones and how hard that must have been, because I can be in a scout van for, days and I'm getting photos and stuff updated in the real time. But we're also asked to make things faster, quicker nowadays too. So
now how do you interact with, say, a director of photography and the director themselves? I mean, on television, the directors change, but a director of photography and the camera department and production design, sometimes the DP will ask you to build places where you can hide cameras or lights or things like that. How much interaction do you have with the director of photography when starting on a project?
Very close. That's usually, I'm the first on, and as soon as I'm on, I'm like, who is it? Who's going to be DP? Like, I need that person here, because before I build stuff, I want to have a discussion of what I think it needs to happen. And, I'm very aware. I've been around a long time. I have a good idea where the shots are, and also where I can put a camera port, because I want them to focus on a certain beautiful point. So it's like, hey, I'll put a camera port here so that, and let them know about it. But it's so important to have a good working relationship with the cinematographer, because lighting is such an element now. In this day and age, the set decorating department and myself are responsible for a lot of the lighting, unlike back in the day when there would be like, 20Ks blasting everywhere. And so especially on Cape Fear, Eben and I worked very closely for the tones and saturation of the show. He, early on, we talked about what lenses he was going to use. We had some camera tests. The lenses that they chose were great because I had originally pitched a very saturated jewel tone looking show in my original pitch to Nick and to Alex and to the rest of the creative team and at Amblin. And he came in and added his expertise on what lenses is really going to make this show pop and not go too crazy. So, we had some camera tests. There was a moment where I brought him into the kitchen and he asked for a skylight above the island, like, no problem. This is the time to ask for things. We had, nobody likes can lights anymore. So now it's, we're just trying to how do you get light into a set practically without 10,000 sconces and a random lamp placed on an island in the kitchen, so there's just a lot of discussions that go in, and I always have such a great working relationship with my DPs, cinematographers, to make language happen.
Well, you've worked on a lot of these kind of very stylish shows. I mean, whether it was Pose, whether it was American Horror Story or American Crime Story, the look of these films, the look of these shows, I think the look of television has become so cinematic over the last, 15 years, 20 years in the streaming world. There's really almost no difference. And I think that the House had a really interesting stylization. The hospital did not look like the hospital in ER that was much more brightly lit. House leaned into very stylish, more moody kind of lighting for a hospital show. But Cape Fear has an incredible stylization to it. I mean, it is incredibly cinematic from the Amy Adams and Javier Bardem and Patrick Wilson. I mean, these are movie stars coming in, and you've got Martin Scorsese and you've got Spielberg, and Scorsese directed his version of Cape Fear, and then you had the original, of course, with Robert Mitchum. I feel like this is, and it's made by Apple, and the quality of Apple shows, the look of Apple shows, I think, is the Tiffany standard of anything that's streaming. I don't know if there's a mandate, if there's somebody up in the Apple higher up saying this show's got to look amazing. I don't know, but it certainly does. How did you find yourself getting involved with Cape Fear, and what were some of your initial conversations about what this show was going to be?
My initial conversations were, they wanted it to feel realistic, but then having, early on talking with Nick, having it set in Savannah, which just adds so many elements visually. You have coastal humidity, the moss filtered sunlight, the reflective wet downs because it rains all the time. There's just so much visual interest happening in Savannah.
Yeah.
That for me, it's so inspiring. And, and a lot of my other shows too, when they give you a little bit of creative freedom, you're like, let's do this. Let's really lean into this. And that's what really excites me about the different various things that I've worked on, because it's not just cookie cutter stuff. I'm more interested in, visually interesting worlds. And Cape Fear had that, and that's what really excited me about the project and working with Nick, and even turning Atlanta into Savannah. We did shoot one day in Savannah, so we have some real Savannah stuff, but just the challenge of that, making all the moss, having a huge greens department to create all these Savannah streets all throughout Atlanta that does not have moss, the constant wet downs, it's just so inspiring artistically to be given the freedom, which Apple also did, to just kind of let us run with it. We put a big pitch together to let them know early on, this is what we're doing. And they had a couple notes here and there, and then we just ran with it, which was great. And that's what you see.
Yeah, it really shows. I didn't realize because I've been to Savannah, and it has a great look, but you've done a great job making Atlanta look Savannah-esque. I mean, really, it's amazing. Now, when you start working on this show, obviously Max Cady is one of the great villains, of all time. And when he shows up, does he have his own? I mean, can a character have production design behind them in order to bring something out? Did you design? I mean, was there lighting looks that would change, or was there something that you would do differently when when he shows up, or I don't know. I mean, it's just that show is so much fun to watch from a visual standpoint. It seems like whenever somebody walks into a room, something's going on in the background or with the lighting, or something is subtly heightening the experience. And I'm wondering, was there something like that going on? Did you do something interesting for him?
I try to make interesting sets of 360. I'm not just you can only look this way
right.
kind of designer. And again, I attribute all those lighting changes and elements to the cinematographers, Ciliana and Evan both. They did an incredible job lighting and changing the color tones. But again, it was all talked about early on in our camera tests. And, Javier was there, Amy was there for our camera tests, which really helps to see how, all the paint colors that I chose, were they working, were they not? Do we have time to change what we did? But for the most part, after the camera tests, everything just stayed the same. So
right.
It kind of worked. And the cinematographers made it work. And there's just, again, I try to find visually interesting things, put them in with set decoration or wallpapers or backgrounds or greens or something, so that it gives the 9 different directors that we had options 360 on reoccurring sets. So
sure.
Maybe they choose, because everybody doesn't want to come in and shoot the same thing. So as you'll see throughout the show, certain people have picked certain areas throughout the house, which is great because that's what I design it for.
Right. Now, when you're dealing with something like this, what are the differences? I mean, obviously every production has the realities. You have budget, you have locations, you have where you're shooting. How do you sort of balance your artistic vision with the actual production realities that you face? Are you pretty malleable? What comes first? Do you think artistic vision has to trump the actual physical shortcomings of a location? Or do you bring your vision to mold it around the production realities you have to face?
I bring the vision to mold around, and anytime, I think that's what's so much fun about my job, is that anytime there's, a problem, or I don't want to say problem, but some sort of roadblock, I believe it's the production designer and my job to come up with a creative solution that then still carries the look of the show that I've established early on around. And budget's always an issue. I still think even with a lower budget, you can still make things very beautiful. You just have to get creative with it.
Sure. Now, how much, obviously shooting, this is interesting, Atlanta for Savannah, you've worked on period pieces, you worked on many different kinds of shows. How much research do you do, and how much does research play into your work? I mean, when you're dealing with, say, a period, do you believe in faithfully recreating that period, or can you play with stylization a little bit? Does it have to be absolutely perfect, or is the storytelling involved is that more important? Like, if you can bend some historical facts a little bit to make something look better on screen, what's most important for you?
I do a tremendous amount of research, especially on period films, to see what the actuality is. And then it depends on who I'm working with. I mean, I usually go into a meeting or a pitch meeting and say, are we doing a documentary here? Are we recreating it absolutely? We have to get this right? Or do I have some creative freedom here to do the things that you're saying, change history in a way that makes it a little bit more visually interesting for what we need the show to be? And usually they say, no, we have the creative freedom to make it visually interesting,
right?
Which is great, because I mean, working on recreations, there's some things that I, even when I'm watching period shows, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if they actually made the banners in the authentic way that they made banners back in the day, or did they have them printed and, just kind of aged to look, So these are always the behind the scenes stuff. I have questions for production designers and things when I meet them. So there's a little bit of both, you want to stay authentic to certain things, but then if the story calls for more visual interest, then it's my job to make it look cohesive with that time period and bump it up a bit.
So when you receive a project that you know you're working on and you start getting in the scripts, what is your actual process? How do you begin designing? How do you begin your process of designing a show once you've received a script? What do you do first?
Once I've received, well, it's kind of I receive the script and then I usually put a pitch together for it. And then if they like the pitch and have a little bit of notes, then once I actually get hired and start again, I read the script again and really break it down per set and break it down. But after the initial pitch and discussion of what the show's going to be and look like, I now go into, with my mood boards, I now have a very clear vision of what I know this needs to be. And then I just go into each set and break it down visually with mood boards that then I can communicate to the people coming on, like set decorator, costume designer, all of that, to be like, this is the visual language. And we can pull from these references of, I always on my boards, I'm like, I put this on there because of that. I put on this because of that, and it's such a great way to just get everybody on the same page very quickly. So that's my process. I read it again, and then I immediately start deep diving into my visual world and researching and pulling imagery and making my mood boards to then get everybody who's coming on the same page of what the show is going to be.
Do you ever take into account the journey that the character's on, for instance? Say their situation gets worse and worse and worse. Do you allow the story itself to ever dictate, say, what kind of colors you would use on a set to sort of heighten the emotion of what's going on, so your production design is actually playing in to what the character might be feeling?
Yes, absolutely. I think we see that the most in Zach's bedroom on Cape Fear. I went into that with, I wanted it to be, the house is being remodeled, as we know in the storyline. And so Zach's room for me was the, he's a moody teen, but when they were remodeling his bedroom, he's artistic. And this was maybe the last moment that him and his mom actually, and dad had a moment to sit down and do this one fun thing together and really make it his own. And so that's why I went a little bit more moody with it, because I knew where the character was going. And we have the exposed brick wall to that, which I know, to some may seem out of nowhere, but it is exposing the brick from the old house. They just left it and let him do what he wanted with his room to make it feel more like a New York kind of apartment. And then it just kind of, the orangey tones on the walls that we did, the black behind his, his computer and his gaming area. All of that was really to build Zach's moodiness character. And the same thing with Natalie's character. She's, I went with more purples and beautiful, simple drawing art outlines behind her bed. And that was she got the anthropology treatment because she's supposed to be the good, classic child who's coming up, whereas Zach is moody and, we all know what happens.
Right. Yeah, sure. And when you're doing sets like this, are there things, what's something that audiences like, what's a secret that you could impart to the audience? Like, hey, most of you wouldn't notice this, but look at this next time you're watching something. Is there anything that, especially like on this show, is there particularly things like maybe in the background? I don't want to diminish anyone's experience of watching this show, but I think it's a show people might go back and watch again. So is there anything about the sets that you could point out and say, look for this or look for that?
Well, overall, the set, is very moody. And I attribute that to Anna and Tom's upbringing, having brought up in the South. And like, they kind of wanted to do that traditional Southern feel to it with a little bit more darker walls and darker wallpapers. The mural in the stairwell is definitely a throwback to where they find Max Cady's wife's body in the swamp area. So that's a little bit swamp with the moss that a mural we created. And then in in Tom and Anna's bedroom, in the wallpaper, this was a little Easter egg I wanted to do. I found this wallpaper that I really loved, and it had a panther in it, and they're like almost touching. So it's supposed to be like Max is even involved in their bedroom as a predator.
Wow.
Over them.
See, that's cool. Okay, now I got to go back and look. So that's that. I mean, that's really interesting. Now, did you? I don't know if I don't know if you would need to do this, but did you ever go back and look at the 2 previous iterations of Cape Fear at all? I mean, this is kind of very different. You did.
It's different, and I always try to be careful doing that because I don't want to again make a recreation of what they've already done. Right. But it's always good to go back and see because this is a remake, and Scorsese's still involved, and I just went back to research and kind of get a feel for it. It was great, but I knew we kind of wanted to bump everything up a bit.
Yeah. Yours is different, but I was just curious to see.
I did that.
Were you intimidated that suddenly you're on a show with Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese as your executive producers?
Of course. I mean, this is, I've worked my entire career to get to, this, to work with those two. Like, heck, come on.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, I keep saying, when you do get to work on a prestige project like this, are you left alone, or do you have to deal with, because to me, the production designer is kind of a sacrosanct position. You don't F with the production designer. I
love that quality, but that's not always the case. Was it a collaborative process for you with all the other people involved? It was definitely a collaborative process, especially with Nick. Nick, he was our showrunner, writer, and I've worked with him before, and he's just so great to work with and collaborative and accessible, and will respond to immediately. And that's always something that in our tight timelines, if you don't have people that involved or responding, that's always makes it a little bit difficult. But Nick, I can't say enough about working with Nick. He was amazing and cared so much about the project, and then would filter things off to wherever he had to. He would be the person that I would reach out to, and then wherever the decisions came from and went, that was came solely to me from Nick working. So which was nice because I only had one point person really, instead of a bunch of different voices. And in Morton coming on, our first director, he was great as well when he came on, just for the visual language, just to get it up and running too. But him and Nick were so collaborative together that it felt like one voice.
Nice. Now, did you draw on, I don't know, European art frescoes, or was there classical inspirations or other movies, or what inspired the design of this film? What did you bring into it from things that you've loved or things that you'd seen or the past, anything like that?
I have spent a little bit of time in Savannah, and I just kind of brought my experiences in Savannah to the show. My parents live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, which is only like 45 minutes to Savannah. So I've spent a lot of time around here, and just what I love so much about this area is that the mood that you feel, what it makes you feel, and I really hope that comes across in this show, because there's nothing like Savannah, like the humidity, the folklore that's behind it, the cobblestone streets, I'm from Massachusetts, so Boston is also very like that, but the heat and like the Spanish moss and all these beautiful things and the haunted history here makes it just so captivating, and it really inspired me with all the sets and the moodiness of the sets.
Well, yeah, nice, because it really does. It does feel that way. I mean, that's part of the success of Scorsese's version too, is that it had that feel to it, and you really feel a sense of place. And I think that's really important. Didn't like the adaptation of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil take place in Savannah? I don't know if you're, yeah, that's why, and it because I think Clint Eastwood made that movie, and it is a singular place, and you've really captured the feel of where you're at. I think you've done a great job. Are there anything that we should look for that you're particularly proud of, like a certain set or a certain location that you dressed, or anything that we should look out if I'm watching it for a second time? Little things that I should maybe be mindful of in terms of set design and production design?
I'm really proud of, and I know this might be lame, but I'm really proud of how well the transitions from the location to the interior build. When they're, run to the front door, go out the front, part of that stage and part of that is picked up on location. And I had some very specific set rules of like, you cannot shoot beyond this because on stage, this is where you pick it up, and they were, and the directors and Ciliana and Eben were both great about I would send text messages to Eben, like, Red, do not shoot further than this, right? So I'm really proud of, because the house is, most of the show, a lot of it takes place in and out of the house, the transitions in and out of the house.
Was it all, was that all a build?
The whole interior was a build. And then the transitions to the location, I think, I feel really happy with how the team, that we all worked together to make it happen. And even actually, there's one scene in episode 2 that, they had to shoot for some reason. They had to shoot the exterior of Anna and Tom sitting on the outside porch steps on stage instead of the location.
Right.
And I think, the team came together and we pulled back because we did some exterior stuff on stage as you always do, but that I think really turned out well. I was really happy about how they filmed it.
Now you've worked, I think about things like Feud, which I loved, and Schmigadoon and something like this, all very different requirements. You've got Hollywood period pieces, then ways that things are being presented, quite different of these kinds of different things, moving in and out of, say, a period piece, coming into something like Cape Fear and working on Schmigadoon. Does your process stay the same? Or do you have to sort of reorient how you approach things based on each project? Like, is a period piece different than a modern, like a Cape Fear?
My process stays the same, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to work on different genres and projects because I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing.
Right.
One look, she's the person that does all of this, type of stuff. I really get excited about a new concept and something new. And that's what I love about my job is that it's changing constantly. Every 8 months or a year, it changes to something else. And I have to use another different part of my brain, or I have to be inspired by something completely different. And I love that. I love going within to find that creative thing to then put out there.
Coming out of working on, you said you worked on 126 episodes of House you did. You were there for a long time on that show.
Years.
How has network, the speed of a network production, sometimes 8 days, 10 days, what are the differences from those experiences you had working on a network show to now working on these prestige streaming shows, which are more like films than they are TV? What is the difference between then and now in terms of your art department, or has it not changed?
Well, I think before I did Cape Fear, I was on Dr. Odyssey, which was a major network TV show. And in the timeline, I think we had 8 day shooting, 8 or 9 days
per episode.
Per episode. And we had 18 episodes. It's, I don't like a feature. You just get a little bit more you get a little bit more time and a little bit more breathing room in between episodes and between directors. I mean, it does get a lot, especially when you have a different director every episode, to then take them through the whole visual process again and take them to all the locations and explain everything. So these specialty shows are like features, and where you have a little bit more time to dive in and explain and get it. Whereas, you know, the network stuff, it's still like bam, 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 we got to go. You create the visual language, and then everybody's got to be on board, even though there are different directors, and it's just a much faster pace. So it is nice kind of really getting into it and letting the directors have a little bit more time to think about and have their process on how they like to work, so that we can all adapt to that, rather than them coming into this machine that's like, this is it, and you got to direct to it.
Now, what do you think about, obviously we have emerging technologies like LED walls, you know, those kinds of things, virtual productions, but they still need to be designed. They still need production design. Has that affected your approach? And are you embracing new technologies, or have you found that with production design, it's not really an issue?
Well, it's definitely an issue. I think you have to embrace to evolve. I think some things make our jobs easier, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. But I think, you know, as we adapt, and the visual language for screens and anything, you still, like you said, you still need a production designer. We still need to do it. And there's a lot of other people. It's not just about what I'm doing in the show. There's actors that have to act on these, you know, volume stages or screens or things like that. We still have to create a world for a lot of other people, because it's not so easy just to step into like in front of a green screen and act when there's no set dressing, when there's no, you know, visual understanding of what world you're in. There's no costumes. So I feel like, yes, we're evolving, but I still think that, you know, all these departments are so important, because it tells a visual story. And I think it comes off even better to the person watching. I mean, I know we've all seen AI generated things, but when you actually are getting, you know, that there's real people behind it, there's textures behind it, there's thought behind it. It's you know, we're creating something special.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing I think that people don't realize is that you know, with AI, you can't make minute changes. You can't swap out a vase, you know, because it has to be recreated. The whole frame has to be recreated from scratch. And even if it did, you'd still need a production designer to pick the vase. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about, I mean, virtual tech, just like anything else, it's a tool. Everything can be used.
Exactly. You know, use it for what you can to help you along, but don't overuse it and put people out of jobs.
Yeah. Now, do you have, when you were growing up, like you said, you saw Lord of the Rings, did you have other touchstones? Like, do you have a favorite production designer? Do you have a favorite film that you look back on for inspiration?
Yes, I do. Well, growing up, my mom early on showed me Gone with the Wind, and for somebody that young to see Gone with the Wind in that long of a movie, and I loved it. So my love affair with the South has been going on for a very long time. But the most important film that I saw that I think has really shaped me, and you might laugh, but is Joe versus the Volcano.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually sort of worked on Joe versus the Volcano.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
I was working at Warner Brothers for Bill Young, who's the senior vice president of feature production. So we worked on all of the movies that Warner Brothers was making. And Joe versus the Volcano shot the storm at sea on stage 16, which they have a giant water tank. So I was on that, because I had to go down there and get production reports and call sheets and distribute them through the rest of the studio. And I met John Patrick Shanley, and that's when I met Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. But that, by the way, is a fantastic answer. I love that you said Joe versus the Volcano, because what about that movie inspires you? Because production design played a huge part in that film. Huge part of that. Like in the beginning, when Joe's like in like first of all, the
walking to work and like that whole scene where everybody's like going and then they go in and just the lights sucking the life out of him, and like all of that production design is just so incredible. And then when I go back and I watch it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, when they're all going down the staircase, I'm like, that's a soundstage.
Right.
Incredible. It's not like the big petroleum factory that.
I love that you said that. I don't think anyone other than you would have brought up Joe versus the Volcano, because the people that love that movie, you know, we're few and far between, but the people that love it really love it. And I love that you said that for production design, because it's got great production design in it.
And there's like another shot in it when he comes out and he just like the dog, there's like this dog and they hand back, it's a big red wall and there's like nothing on it. It's brick wall. And it's such a Hopper-esque like picture that I also love as an artist. And I'm like, God, like there's so many moments in that movie that I'm just like, this is genius.
Wow. What an answer. That's a great answer.
And then I did Schmigadoon season 2. And so the production designer that did Joe vs. the Volcano did season 1 of Schmigadoon.
Did you like fangirl out? Did you like?
I did, but I didn't. Well, I'm glad he turned it down because doing season 2, because then I got to do it. But I was super, and everybody had, and I have no idea why, but of course his name is escaping me at the moment.
Right, that's okay. I'll find it.
Edit this out. Yeah. But Bill Welsh, sorry, Bill. Yeah. Bo
Welsh, yeah. Famous Bo, one of the most famous production designers in Hollywood.
Totally. So he did one of my favorite movies, and then I got to follow it. And I was so nervous working on Schmigadoon because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm coming in after a hero of mine. What is he gonna think or say, or does he even care? Like, who knows?
I'll bet he cared.
Well, I don't know, but hopefully I'll get to meet him.
Do you have a dream genre or project? Like you talked about Lord of the Rings, would you like to do an epic fantasy film?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to do an epic fantasy film or sci-fi. Again, just something that like takes my brain in a different direction. And I just love getting into any of that. I love it. I think and this is terrible to say, and I know this is probably not, my agent and my publicist are probably like, don't say this, but like shooting LA present day for LA present day is like my nightmare. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to use my brain to actually get creative and like get out there.
Well, yeah, because you get to control an environment. Why do you want to just shoot on? Although I will say this, when you to see somebody these days shoot LA for now, when you can make LA look good and fine, there's a lot of interesting locations that never get shot in LA.
True.
And
that's true.
And people use the. How many times do I have to see a car chase down at the 7th Street Bridge? Since they rebuilt it or whatever, it's like, find somewhere else, do something else. Yeah. I mean, when I watch William Friedkin's To Live and Die in L.A., they shot in the like horrible places that it was not fun. It was not fun L.A. It was grungy industrial L.A. And it's like, is that really Los Angeles? And of course, if you can do something like Blade Runner, and then redress the entire back lot of, but no, I totally understand. I mean, I'm a big fan of Guy Dias, production designer, he just did He-Man. He did Masters of the Universe, but he also did things like Inception, and he did Superman Returns, really versatile, and he's built lots of great worlds, and he's a terrifically talented dude, and I love seeing what a great production designer can do, and like you said, jumping between genres. But I do think that this particular show really benefited, Cape Fear really benefited from your talent, because there is a mood. This show has a mood, and it's immediately established. And I think what you did on the show was incredibly integral to that mood, and you feel it.
On that note, I thank you, because on that note, I just want to say, I pitched really dark sets. I was like, these sets are dark and moody, and you really have to get the cinematographers on your side with that, because it's a super challenge
especially for TV.
But especially for TV, and I had to have them behind me to do this, and Nick behind me, but I really felt strongly that this was the way to go. I really wanted a dark, moody vibe to the show.
Well, it works.
Tones and popping, colors then pop off the puddles and things like that. It was important to me.
When you look back on this experience, what will you remember about Cape Fear in terms of your work? What could you tell? What are some of the things you're most proud of on the whole series?
I'm most proud of the saturation, the colors and the saturation. I really, again, it was one of those things where you're like, nobody painting black on a set is like a big, typically no. And I was like, we're doing it. I'm doing it. I want it. If we're going to embrace it, we're going to do a gloss so that it bounces light. But it just my paint and color choices, that's I think I'm like really proud that I stuck to my guns, and I was like, this is going to work. I know it looks dark to everybody, but it's going to work.
And it did work. What is something when you watch? Yeah, when you watch films, you were talking about Gone with the Wind or Lord of the Rings. What are some of the things that you, as a production designer, what do you notice off the bat? Like when you're watching a film, are you looking for production design, and what's something that really catches your eye when you're watching films?
Some of the best production design for me is when I don't feel like I'm watching them, like I'm in it, and I don't feel like I'm on a set, or I'm not in LA somewhere, or like, oh, look at that backing out the window. Backings always like catch my eye a lot. So Lord of the Rings is, their budget's massive and crazy, and but that's something that, like, when I'm totally in a show and I'm not distracted by anything, I think that's when the production design is incredible. It's like, I'm in it. This is incredible. I'm not noticing things that are taking me out of it, because that's one thing that drives my husband crazy when we're watching something. I'm like, look at that. Look at that. He's like, I would have never noticed it if you didn't point it out. And I'm like, he's like, now I can't stop looking at it. I'm like, I know, but I can't help it. Like, it's like staring me right in the face. So that, I think, is what makes incredible production design.
Now, one of the things that we ask people, there's a lot of people, obviously, that always want to get into the entertainment business. What's some advice you could tell people if they want to get into production design or work I would say be a PA in the art department first, because you learn a lot. But what are some of the things that you could impart to people? What wisdom can you give to the next generation?
It's long hours. It's a lot of sacrifice. That is something that when I talk to people that want to meet for coffee or anything, I'm like, just so you know up front, I'm like, I've gotten where I am today by missing a lot of family events, a lot of friend events, because you have to give 110% of yourself at all times, mostly. So if that's not something that you feel you can give, then maybe this industry isn't for you. It's long days. It's 10, 12, 14-hour days sometimes. Again, you're not making happy hours with your friends that work, 8-hour jobs. It's a big commitment, but it is so rewarding. My sister's an incredible nurse, and my work has been recognized. Our work is recognized in Emmys and Oscars, all these kinds of things. And it's like, I didn't save a life today. I haven't saved, that's what's kind of rewarding about it, is like, people actually see what I do every day, and nobody, the unsung heroes everywhere else. But that's something that is, if you can stick through the long hours and missing out, it's gratifying because people actually see what you do every day, and appreciate it. And we're creating worlds for escapism, and
the ultimate luxury product.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, I mean, look, great production design. My favorite word in the English language is verisimilitude. You know, the quality of being real. And I'm always about, when you're working on a film, you are creating reality out of complete unreality. And if you can convince an audience of that, that is the great magic trick. If you can make them believe. I mean, 25 years later, Fellowship will celebrate its 25th anniversary in November this year.
Oh, wow.
And people are still watching these films a quarter century later, and they've lost none of their power because they're evoking a place in time that people will return to again and again and again. And that, I think that's true of, that's why movies are great. You know, the greatest art form I think ever created. And your work is exemplary. And I want to thank you for being here on this show. And Cape Fear is an amazing program that delivers the goods. And I suggest everybody watches it because, and if you think you're just going to watch one episode, no, you can't. You have to set aside some time because you will want to binge. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with about your favorite moments or anything that you'll take away from the production of Cape Fear that you won't ever forget?
I mean, working with such an incredible cast who are all in it. I mean, there's not every single performance on screen. Each time I watch an episode, I'm like, that was incredible. That person was incredible. That person was incredible. Just in the crew. The crew is always what I take away from such a great experience and such a successful outcome is how hard everybody on that crew works to bring everybody together and to I think that really shows through the film from, you know, all of our producers and all the support we got. You see it. You know, I think a successful show has that behind it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of I will look at an Apple show just because it's an Apple show, because of the high quality that they bring to their productions. And I think because it's not just for Apple, they're a technology company and they're not necessarily an entertainment company. And the shows they make are maybe not constrained by, say, what a major studio has to deal with. Apple can do whatever it wants. So and you can see it because they have some of the best produced, I think, shows on TV. Everything that they do. I mean, there's a show on now called Star City on Apple that has incredible production design. They shoot it in Lithuania, you know. But Cape Fear is another example of just excellence all the way around from top to bottom. Well, I want to thank you for being on our show today and coming on to the Designing Hollywood podcast. Jaime Walker McCall, can people find you on social media?
Yes. They can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the stuff. My website, JamieWMcCall.com. I'm out there. Hit me up. Happy to chat with anybody.
Wow, that's nice. Well, you'll be probably hearing from people
when I can. Yeah, that's okay. I still hear from people on House. People reach out to me from House.
Yeah. And the thing is, House is everywhere. It's like I said, watching those House clips, I can't get enough of them. Mm-hmm. You know, because
just a little note, this is another Easter egg. House's prescription is his prescription RX number is my phone number, because I was stupid enough at the time to put that.
You don't still have that number, do you?
I still do, and I will still get random text messages. Asking questions about the show.
Wow, now that is a cool Easter egg. That is very cool. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for taking your time on this Saturday to be on the Designing Hollywood show. Do you have anything, can you talk about a project you might have coming up? Do you have anything on the horizon we can look forward to?
I cannot, actually.
I know, nobody can anymore. They can't tell us what they're working on.
I know, it's all, untitled project, such and such.
It would be very funny if that's like it's some, parody movie and that's what it's called. Untitled Project, such and such. Well, Jaime Walker McCall, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being on the Designing Hollywood podcast.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. We appreciate it.
A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and of course, John Campea from the John Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at rmburnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeek Singularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.